Hello everybody, it's Michael Hollands once again for Sound of the Movies. Today I have the pleasure to be joined by the legendary Bill Conti. Over the course of his career, Bill Conti has shown his musical versatility and brilliance, scoring pictures such as Rocky, F.I.S.T, Escape to Victory, Gloria, The Karate Kid, The Masters of the Universe, Broadcast News, Lock Up, Blood In, Blood Out, The Thomas Crown Affair, and many more. It is my distinct pleasure to welcome Bill Conti.
Thank you, Michael. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
It's great to have you on my show. I'm so glad you took the time out of your schedule for me today, Bill. Bill, how did you end up in film scoring? What sparked your interest?
Well, the truth is, growing up in my house, my father was a musician, my grandfather was a musician, and there was always music. And I am an Italian-American, so there was always opera going on in my house. And the dramatic music of the opera was something that was a part of the atmosphere. It was a part of breathing. And my father was a musician, and like I said, and my grandfather also. And so I began studying music, and when it came down to what was the kind of music that I wanted to, or that affected me the most, was the dramatic music, the music that was obviously emotional. I mean, all music is emotional, but the most emotional, of course, is this operatic music, and I proceeded to want to do something in that area, but I also wanted to eat. So I guess I chose dramatic music writing in movies and television as opposed to writing operas for the theater. And I guess I did write an opera in college, but I don't think I wanted to pursue writing opera. But I didn't want to not write non-dramatic music. I wanted to write dramatic music. So it seemed the only place to go was film music.
And of course, you need to make money. You need to support yourself and your family, and you need to make ends meet. And the money is in film and television. So I think that's the best choice a composer could make, especially also today. And to me, film is art, and film music is one of the finest art forms and one of the most important factors in any movie for me personally. And Bill, how would you describe the marriage of film and music and how it works best, creating a lasting impression for the audience, so to speak?
Music does not need anything. Music speaks for itself. It has its own voice. Writing, poetry, the visual arts doesn't need any help from anyone else. But when you combine them, the earliest poems in recorded history were sung and eventually accompanied. We get at least in the Western world, our drama and descriptions of drama from the Greeks, and there was music. There was always music a part of it. The natural way of making sounds is not necessarily on banging on rocks or plucking strings or blowing through tubes. We're walking around with an instrument. Our voice, aside from communicating, which seems to me elementary. Well, I mean, that's what we do, but not all of us sing, by the way. But the very first or second thing that might come to your mind is that you could vocalize. So music is a big deal, and when it's put together with other art forms, it becomes bastardized. No question about it. If you like Wagner or Verdi, and you realize that sometimes the words aren't really good. Sometimes the words are great. Sometimes the actors are good. Sometimes they're not. Likewise with the music. But when you get that combination that's got the right chemistry, the just enough of a story that you can say, well, this might not be a good story. And Wagner could make up some stories that were like a little dodgy. I mean, he made up some great stories, but at a certain point you go, really? You really want to tell that story? And he does, but you're lost. Now you're lost in the ultimate fantasy. The ultimate fantasy comes from music. The fantasy that says "see spot run," or a manipulation of words that, or a statue or a painting that depicts something, is not. It could be a fantasy, but the ultimate fantasy is sound. It goes into your ears, and you, with ears, make of it whatever you want. You can make up stuff in your head about, in your feelings about anything. So this ultimate fantasy of music that combines with dance, that combines with voice, that's everywhere. You can't turn on a television. People don't talk without music behind them. I think it's distracting. Why do they do that? Why is music selling you mayonnaise? Why is music everywhere? Well, because it's useful. It's a part. When you say it's an art, it is an art form in that anything that we make, art is like artificial. We make shoes. Making shoes is an art form. Anything artificial is going to be an art. But when you get to the degree of making music and combining a story like the Magic Flute, you're at the highest level of making art. Films sometimes approach higher levels. We must admit that most of the time there's a curve, there's a bell curve. There's a lot of stuff in the middle that might be entertaining. It might be interesting. And by the way, it must be either entertaining or interesting, or you're not going to see it. So, but some go beyond. Some go beyond and do things to you that is not just entertaining or interesting. It's transcendental. Well, what is that? Well, that's the magic part. And at the lower end of the bell curve, there's vulgar entertainment. It's entertaining, but for who? Different people like different things. So you got the whole spectrum in film and television, and music is the glue for me. Now, music, because I'm a musician, has to remain the glue. I hear music. I hear music when I look at a painting. I hear music when stuff is happening. Not everyone does that, but you're right that and music and film is special.
Oh, absolutely. And some would say it's even the most rewarding musical genre as it offers you to write in a very complex way.
Well, it's emotionally very important. When something is done well, you have to acknowledge that. It's not the most important part of the film, but it really carries its weight. In other words, it's really up there at the level of the story. If it's a bad story but acted well, you're there because that actress or actor is like, wow, what a performance. So that's different. In the same way with the music. If the music is just there in the background and somebody yells, go get him, and the music begins, and it's just banging along and it's just adding to the excitement, that doesn't make it special. But sometimes, and the only things that really count, I think, and it's what you're saying, is that it's when it's special, it's really good. It's really the epitome of an aesthetic feeling that can't be replaced by anything else.
Yes, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And some would say a composer needs to reflect what's on the screen. Other composers would say it's not about what's on the screen, but what the audience should be feeling. So I guess it depends on your own perception, but ultimately you need to write something which services the film and which doesn't kick it, over the top, but which is most appropriate for the story and the characters and how you enhance what you see and what the audience should be feeling, I guess.
I think that's true in part. When I do something, I'll make it personal because I can't make it for anyone else, because what you have just described has been described by other people also. Okay, so the point of view of the story and the film is something that is handled by the director. He wants it to communicate the message of this story to an audience. He wants to communicate. Yes, he does. And he begins and ends by how he feels about it. He thinks, not that the people are going to like it, he thinks this is the best presentation of this story. Not to get an applause, but because in other words, that's being truthful. When I write a piece of music and she says on the screen in the story simply, "I love you," and he says, "I love you too," and the director says, "I want music." Now, I only think, what do I feel about "I love you" and she loves me? I'm married. I have a wife, 55 years. Love is a subject or an emotion that anyone who is a communicator, I'm a communicator, I do it through music, should be able to say a few words or a few notes about music. So to be honest, I can't say this is what Michael should think about love situations. I only should say, I hope in our humanity, Michael's a human, I'm a human, I know about love, and he knows about love, but I know how to communicate it in music. Why? Because I advertise that I'm a composer. I mean, I got to take the responsibility of saying, what do I do? Well, I communicate through music. I'm communicating the emotion of love, but mine. I don't know his. I have no idea. I have no idea what he even likes. That's not the point. I hope, because if I had a toothache and I said, "Michael, I have a toothache," he would say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I've had one too. I know what it feels like." So I'm not trying to say what the toothache feels like to you. I'm saying I feel this way about it. And humanity, you get it. So I love you. I put it on the screen. It makes me cry. I wouldn't write it if it didn't make me cry. If I thought this will make him cry, but I don't think it works for me, I'm a dishonest person. I'm dishonest. I'm not truthful. So I never think of the audience. I think what evokes the most emotion. I'm mad. I'm angry. I'm working out. I'm running up the stairs in Rocky. What does it take to win this fight? What do I do to go to the distance? All of that silly stuff that people have to put into music is something that I got to feel. If I don't feel it, I don't put it on the paper. Why? Because it would be a lie. It's not the truth. So I write the truth. I think everyone else does too, by the way. Otherwise, they're faking it. I mean, how do you fake "I love you"? It's terrible to fake "I love you." So the composer, or the director, the writer is writing what he feels, and that if somebody gets it, it's a hit. If they don't get it, his feelings aren't less. His ability might be less to communicate. He might be not a very good composer, director, writer. But if he's pretty good, and all of those things come together, he's got a hit. And by the way, the hit brings the money, meaning it's a success. Like when they say, what makes a success? I have no idea. I think I was a little bit crazed about thinking that I would have to write for the audience. Now, do you have to keep the audience in mind? There's no doubt about it that in a general sense, everything is for an audience.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you very much for sharing your thoughts on that, Bill. That was really elaborate, and also you made a very good point here. And Bill, before we talk about your success as a movie composer, scoring for films such as Rocky, Karate Kid, and also James Bond, For Your Eyes Only, I would love to talk a little bit about your work for television because it's also very diverse. You had written music for Dynasty, Falcon Crest. You wrote the theme for the American Gladiators, the ABC News theme, very catchy themes and very succinct. And I always believe that a theme for a television series is like a calling card. You need to express what the show is about. What's your take on that? What can you tell me about those days when you wrote those themes?
So everything you said, as usual, is true. One thing that you did leave out is that you have to tell the branding of the show in very little time.
Yes.
You have to do it immediately. Otherwise, people have control of the remote control. They will turn the channel. They will flip to something else if you don't grab their attention. So a TV commercial of 30 seconds, boy, it takes a knack to do that. You have to bang so much information, and a 10-second blippy thing is very hard to do. So the TV show that becomes a series doesn't begin as a series. It begins as a pilot. And it has a main title. And in that main title, you must capture the essence of what you're about to see and be truthful, of course, a little bit truthful. There was a show I did called Cagney and Lacey. It was a cop show, police show, with two women as the police officers, detectives, something like that. And the producer said to me, Bill, I follow a comedy. There's a comedy that precedes our show, just in the pilot. He says, I want to hold that audience. Some like Western. Some people like Western. Some people don't. So he says, these people are watching a comedy right before mine. I want to hold them. Do something that makes them think that something light is going to follow. Now, it didn't, by the way. It was a police show. And Cagney and Lacey has this peppy, energetic, not malevolent, not dangerous, not kind of music. It's kind of fun. And he liked it, which is more important than anything, because if he didn't like it, he wouldn't have used it. And of course, it worked for him. On Dynasty, the producer and writer said, you know, I want these people to know it's about rich people in the West. Now, what does that mean to a composer? So if you know a little bit about the film music history, I'm going to say that because I want to go to opera, because it's in the opera too, by the way. There's not very much that's new in terms of when we say rich people in the West. So Gone with the Wind was like rich people in the South. I'm talking filmically, right? So this and the scope of the South in the Civil War, and this was like corporations in oil in the West. So you had to have a big sweeping theme that displayed that. Now, if you're a composer, you know how to do that kind of stuff. So there used to be main titles that were a minute and a half. That's a long time to have a main title, especially with people today. People today are looking at 15 seconds and you're into the show. So you have to pay attention to this branding thing and be able to do it quickly. Because writing in the medium of music means you get no time at all. You get no time at all because everything's on a budget. A big movie, the old days, the golden days of movie making, was a 10-week schedule. The composer had 10 weeks. Now, those days are long gone, long gone. So the contracts don't say that anymore. The right stuff had a score before mine, and they didn't use it. They wanted a new one. They needed it fast. They needed it in 2 weeks. So 2 weeks. Now, that's a little short. A film called Neighbors that had a turnaround and had to come out. John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd. It was a week. 1 week, major motion picture. 45 minutes of music in a week. So it varies. So I've got 10 weeks that no one does anymore. 1 week is like, that's brutal. That no one does that really anymore. You might do 2 weeks on a major film, maybe. But in television, it could be 3 days. A turnaround time of 3 days. Now, sometimes there's help. You get help. It can't be done alone. None of this stuff is done alone. But you have to be quick. You are not inspired, or inspiration happens sometime. You must write. You get up. You might not feel so good that day, or you might. In film music, traditionally, if you wrote 2 minutes a day, 3 minutes a day, you were doing good. To be on schedule, right? 2 or 3 minutes a day. You won't survive in television. You can't do that. You absolutely can do it. It's stream of conscious. So when you listen to bad television music, which you can't make excuses for, because you're just a listener, you don't care whether the guy was sick or he didn't have any time to do it, or he wasn't the right one for the job. None of those things. So the chances of hearing good music in television are really slim, really slim. And you do. Slim, though. It's different things. One may not be cut out for the other. In other words, you might be a good long form and not in a short form guy. It is tricky to be both. I enjoy being eclectic enough to do commercials and TV and films. I like that. I care about being busy and interesting. I think of it in a Baroque sense. We were talking about turning to film and television to make a living. Writing to make a living only became is a part of what musicians do. They're like shoemakers. They're like plumbers. This is what they do. They're professionals. The artist, of course, is in the sense of, I only throw paint on the wall from here, and that's what I do. And how do you live? Well, if you don't pay them for the painting, he's not going to live. He's going to die. So the artist that's sustained by other people just giving him money is kind of a contemporary.
Now I would love to talk a little bit about Rocky. Rocky is still one of the most inspiring and most motivating pictures and scores of all time. It wasn't a big budget movie, yet it felt very rich in terms of character development and also in terms of music. How did you get involved?
I'm living in Rome, Italy. I do a film meaning as the music supervisor. I was the Italian music supervisor on a film called Bloom in Love. Warner Brothers, Paul Mazursky, director, Richard Halsey, film editor. So here we go. 2 names. Richard Halsey, film editor, Paul Mazursky, director of Bloom in Love. They're doing a movie called Harry and Tonto. Art Carney, An Old Man and a Cat. Give me some music, the editor says, so I can play it during dailies. Dailies are the film that they look at every day, of the film they shot the day before. What's it about? I don't have a script. What can it be about? It's about an old man and a cat. Play some music. I play some music. I improvise some music. It's being shot in Chicago. They put it to the dailies. Just the scenes, some scene, guy walking down the street with a cat. Director falls in love with it. Film cutter, Richard Halsey, goes to do a movie with Burt Reynolds. WW and the Dixie Dance Kings at 20th Century Fox. Bill, I want you to meet the director. Hey, hi. It's his name, John Avildsen. Do some music for us for the movie. Yeah, sure. Here's some piano music. This is what it could be. We love it. Studio doesn't like it. Wants to use somebody else. Next movie. That director, Avildsen, with that cutter, film editor, Richard Halsey, is doing a little movie called Rocky. The star of the show is married to a film composer. He's offered the job. How much does it pay? Nothing. I mean, it's a package deal. It's a $25,000 package deal. No, it's too little. Okay. What about that guy, Bill Conti? Would he do it? I said, yes. That's the story.
Wow, amazing. It's such a big legacy. And so many people love the movie. They find it very inspiring. And your music really captured the essence. You wrote delicate cues such as Alone in the Ring. Of course, you wrote the Rocky's Reward for the end credits. And of course, Gonna Fly Now, which also got you an Academy Award nomination for Best Original Song back then. And Bill, if I am correct, you wrote the first part of Gonna Fly Now when they started editing Stallone's training montage. Is that right?
The training montage was in the 10th reel. So Avildsen, the director, said, I need about a minute and a half's worth of music when Rocky is training, because it's easier, it's easier to cut a montage of exercise scenes to a rhythm, to a piece of music. So I says, okay. So I gave him about a minute and a half based on the little theme that I had. Now, it was a very sad movie for 9 reels, for definitely for 9 reels. And da-da-da-da-da it was the little sad motif that I used. Now, I just did it faster, and I kind of punched it up a bit. And I put it in on we used to have what's called cassette recorders. And they put it to the minute and a half. And he says, yeah, I need more. I need 30 seconds more. Can you give me 30 seconds? I tack on 30 seconds. So we did that up to 3 minutes. I tacked on 30-second intervals just so that he could keep adding shots of Sylvester running up and down the street, working out, all that. And I didn't sit down to write a song. I mean, I sat down and I gave him a minute and a half to go running and jumping with. And then at the end, we had about 3 minutes. I kind of tacked it together pretty good, but with 3 minutes, and he says, look at this. It's like he's going to fly now. And I go, well, yeah. He says, John, it's your movie. You can say anything you want. And we had lyricist girls on the movie, 2 girls, for another song or 2 in the movie, and we turned it over to them, and they put lyrics to the little song. And my wife was working as a secretary in a TV studio at that time, and I said, "Do you know anyone that sings in your office?" Now this is California. This is Los Angeles, and there are actors. Every waiter is an actor. Every whatever is a singer. So there's lots of people around. I mean, you don't even know who they are. But I says, if there's any singers in there, because my wife sings a little bit, why don't you come by and sing this that we're doing in the movie? See, I had a $25,000 package deal for the composer. You have to pay for everything. You got to pay for the studio. You got to pay for the music, the copying. You got to pay for the rental of the microphones. You got to pay for everything. And then you get what's left. So she came in on a lunch break with singers, and they sang. We played. It was 1 3-hour session. In the film business, music sessions are in 3-hour increments. So it was 1 3-hour session, and we did it.
Rocky turned out really, really well. You worked on the sequels as well. You worked on 5 out of 6 Rocky movies. You didn't do part 4. And I also liked how you developed themes for Rocky 2, rewrote the visual theme when Adrian is in a coma, then which later on became, the Mickey theme when Burgess Meredith dies in Rocky 3. And you wrote a fantastic piece of music which is called Conquest for the Fights, which takes place in Rocky 2, which is also used in Rocky 3. So there was a lot going on. Very good orchestration, very good writing, and I would say it's film history.
Well, it is because people liked it. Now, most people are working on movies and giving their heart and soul and doing great work, and if it doesn't be a big hit, they don't get studied very much. They don't get appreciated as much by the general public. But I was lucky that everyone was. Sly wrote a story that maybe that story had been written before, but not the way he said it. That was unique enough that people just said, wow. And the director, the acting, it kind of came together, and then it gets memorable. It gets into the logbooks. You know, you log it as, all right, this is one of them that is a milestone of sorts along the way.
Bill, may I ask you why you didn't score Rocky IV, or is that a sore subject?
Well, the simple, truthful answer is I wasn't asked. In other words, I didn't have a contract. I did the Academy Award 19 times, which is a TV show, but it's because I was asked to do it 19 times. They have their option of not using you too, and I appreciate that. Appreciate that in the sense that they didn't have to ask me every time. It's nice. I like it. I wasn't mad. I was disappointed that they didn't ask me in Rocky IV, but it was not like a change of life. I mean, it was simple, you know.
Yes.
They wanted to try something else that time. Again, if I'm going to say disappointed, because I would be lying if I said I wasn't disappointed, but it wasn't like earth shaking to the point of being that big a deal.
Before we talk about you winning the Oscar in 1983 for The Right Stuff, I would love to get into your James Bond experience, because in 1981 you had scored For Your Eyes Only, James Bond movie starring Roger Moore. You had written the score and also the title song, which was performed by Sheena Easton. And if I am informed correctly, you had different artists in mind at first. Is that correct?
I did. I wanted, first of all, I wanted Barbra Streisand to write the lyrics to a Bond song. When you're a composer and you get to do a Bond picture, you get to do the song. Or you could. You have an opportunity to do the song. You're not guaranteed that you're going to have the song, but you're going to have a shot at the song. So I wanted Barbra Streisand to write the lyrics. She was busy. She was doing Yentl. She wanted to do it. I know she wanted to do it. But and I wanted Donna Summer to sing it. And United Artists. And they kept saying, what about this girl, Sheena Easton? And yeah, she had a hit going on at the time, a little pop single, and not a very adventurous. It was a hit, but the song did not display her vocal talent. So I kept saying, well, maybe not. When you think of the Bond things before you get to 1981, the big name in women is Shirley Bassey.
Yes.
She was a woman that sang the Bond songs. She had a big voice, and it was dramatic stuff. And I'm looking for that. Now that's at the time I was looking for that. And Sheena, anyway, I wrote the score to the Bond picture in London, and so we should at least meet with her. And she came over, and we sat down at the piano, and she had this incredible range. She had this voice. She could really, really sing, but you couldn't hear it on that little pop tune. So I wrote a song for her that would display her low voice and her high voice, and it worked out.
I think it's a really good song, and your contribution to the world of James Bond is also very powerful, and I like the score a lot. My favorite cue in there was A Drive in the Country. I think that was absolutely fantastic. Unfortunately, you didn't score more Bond movies, but if I remember correctly, John Barry even recommended you for this one, right?
He did. For some reason, he had a conflict of some sort. I don't remember which, but isn't that odd? You know, maybe it isn't odd. I thought at the time, one film composer recommending another is like, wow, how do you do that? But we were kind of friendly. We ate together. You know, I liked Don. We were together a bit, and I was shocked, but I appreciative when he did. He recommended me to do the For Your Eyes Only.
Great, fantastic. And Bill, in 1983, you won the Oscar for The Right Stuff. If I'm not mistaken, it was your third nomination by this point. And it was a huge movie, 3 hours long. Bob Chartoff, Irwin Winkler produced it. For those of you who don't know, those two gentlemen also produced Rocky. And you had to write a replacement score very quickly, if I'm not mistaken. How did you actually manage to write this quickly and score a 3-hour movie?
So after 2 weeks of, I had a 2-week head start, and then we were in the studio recording the music from 7 to midnight every night. But I had a head start. I had 2 weeks to write, and so that meant during the next days and weeks, I was writing all day and then recording 7 to 12 every night. And that went on until we finished. It was a tough schedule, but it doesn't. We talked about that. Those like if you can't write fast, and if your stream of conscious writing isn't pretty good, then you're in the wrong business. I think that everyone that does this, all the film composers that do this, no matter where they are, in Berlin, Munich, Los Angeles, New York, you got to do this. This is part of the deal. We want it, and we want it tomorrow. You can't pull, I need more time. No, people don't care about that. So you have to be fast. It's an ability that if you can't develop it and you're not born with, keeps you out of the business. You can't, like the young people that want to do it. If you can't do that, then it's not going to happen. You're not going to do it. Because the situations are business situations. They're not musical situations. It's product. This product that is being built and is going to be sold on this day at this time in 1,200 theaters is coming out. Now, whatever happens before, they don't put the schedule off. I mean, that if it's opening, they've been advertising that it's opening, and you get problems on the set. You get problems in the fifth reel. You get problems with the previews. People didn't like it. You got to go back and reshoot. You got to redo. That opening schedule is right there. So there's pre-production, there's production, and there's post-production. So who do you think gets the shortest end of these deals? It's post-production. Everyone in post-production, sound editing, sound mixing, dialogue mixing, music making, effects making, all got to be done at the last minute. Not all the time, but most of the time. So if you're not quick, you can't do it. So the right stuff was the same deal. It was done quickly.
Amazing, amazing. A really great accomplishment. And if I'm not mistaken, you also had some temp track issues in that one. They asked you to get inspired by Gustav Holst.
Yeah, they asked me to plagiarize Gustav Holst, but I can't put my name on something that is Gustav Holst's. And I kept as far away as I could. Now, what that means is stylistically, musicians and composers know what's it like to write like Elton John. Okay. Why do they call it an Elton John song? Because it sounds like all the other songs you wrote. They're Elton John songs. So when you do that, now if you steal Elton John's song, that's different. That's stealing. But if you say, hey, this has the feel of, why? Because the notes that go like this kind of go like this in his. You get close to the line. To do Gustav Holst is you have to be able to tear his style apart and say, I can make it sound like that. I just can't make it be the exact same thing because it's not fair. It wouldn't be me. So yeah, mine sounds like Gustav Holst. There's no doubt about it. It happens all the time. But I don't feel that it was stealing. Yeah. I'll give you another one.
Yeah.
I'll give you another one. There was a Paramount picture that I did. It was a comedy. I had, and it's a parody.
You mean wrongfully accused, right?
Yeah, okay, thank you. You're very good. And it was all for jokes. Have this piece of music, this famous piece of music of other people, right? All throughout it in the temp track. And I said, so look, if I'm going to do that, you're going to have to sign an indemnification that if people sue me, you asked me to do this, which they did. I had a contract. And I had what's called an indemnification against plagiary because I was using other people's music. And I was not advertising it as my music, but that's the only way the joke worked was to have that kind of music. I said, well, if I do it, you got to write that, I'm clear that whoever comes out of the woods to sue me, you will take care of, you will pay. And they did. So it does happen.
That's quite a story, and I mean the temp track issue is still very much alive these days, and many composers struggle with that. And I know many composers actually hate the temp. They hate having to deal with it because they get asked to just blatantly rip off somebody else, and of course nobody likes to do that.
Yeah. But in defense of them, they are. I mean, and I mean this in a kind way. They are musically illiterate. So how else are they going to best tell you what kind of music they want there? So they do that to display, I really like this music there. I mean, our answer is, well, buy it. They don't mean that. They want you to do that, but they don't have another means of saying what they want. This is what I want. And then if it's not exactly that, they get a little bit disappointed. So they have to manipulate their wants, too, to say, well, is it close enough that you can live with that?
If we still have some time left, I would like to talk about the Karate Kid, because in 1984 you had teamed up again with director John G. Avildsen, who directed Rocky, and you ended up scoring all 4 Karate Kid movies, but John Avildsen only directed 3 of them. How did you and John Avildsen tackle this also very inspiring story, which is also an underdog story, because he's a young man. He just moved to a new city with his mother. He has to rise to the occasion. He has to prove himself. He is the victim of bullying. What do you remember about this project?
Well, one thing I do want to tell you is to watch a documentary, if you haven't already, King of the Underdogs. Yeah, it is about John Avildsen. I did 16 pictures with John. And those are the stories he tells. He tells fairy tales. He told me that on Rocky. It's a classic story. He didn't think of it he thought of it as a classic story. Those kind of stories interest him, and they've interested people forever. And Jerry Weintraub was the producer. Interesting thing there is to create the environment that you hopefully fall in love with. You probably already guess when you go in or halfway through, you know he's going to win the fight. In the case of Rocky, of course, Rocky didn't win the fight, but the underdog prevails. Everything has to be, and I've said this earlier on, interesting and done well. Now, this applies to all art forms, everything. If it's not interesting or done well, we don't like it. I mean, it can be really, really interesting and not done well, and it won't go too far. Or just the opposite. So you have to create that stuff if you're a creator. You got to create an atmosphere of that. Now, what is that? I mean, what is that? Where is that atmosphere? So I have the guy in the studio, and we play the panpipes and get a sound going for this hopeful young karate learning to make it interesting and do it really well. And luckily enough, people went to go see it and they liked it. Karate Kid 2, 2 things happened. Couldn't find Zamfir because he travels the world, playing concerts all over the place. Who knows where he is? And technology got to such a point that we got his recordings down from the Karate Kid 1. Well, why don't we sample use his sounds, his notes, each individual note. Let's draw up something and use that instead. So we do that. We use synthetic Zamfir on Karate Kid 2 because he hears about it somewhere at some theater in Hong Kong, and he says, I didn't play on Karate Kid 2. And he comes back to do it again on 3, something like that. But technology had gotten to such a point that we faked him.
But it did work out. Great. John Avildsen wasn't available to direct the next Karate Kid, and you also worked on it. It starred Hilary Swank, and it also had a very, very nice themes in there. I also seem to recall a scene in which Hilary Swank releases the Falcon, if I'm not mistaken, and you see the lovely shot of the ocean, and then you scored it beautifully.
Thank you, Michael.
Now I would like to talk about Masters of the Universe, which I think is one of your finest scores ever. And if I am informed correctly, some difficult circumstances surrounded the recording of this project. They also had to move the recording session to Munich at some point. Is that right?
There was not exactly, but I think there was a strike of some kind in Los Angeles, and because the score was recorded in Munich.
Yes, okay.
And there was a different conductor, and I wasn't there. But what they did was many days of recording. I was on the phone as if that mattered, which it didn't. But I did send someone to be in the booth and overlook, and we did mix for 2 weeks. Yes, there was a lot of music, a tremendous amount of music, and I did not participate in the recording. It was well done.
The score has seen various releases throughout the years, and it was re-released again maybe a year ago, and I believe it sold out again. It was really another good release. If we still have some time left, I would like to talk about your time as a musical director for the Academy Awards. We had previously talked about it. You had worked on this show for 18 or 19 times, and I've always wondered what exactly your job entailed. I mean, you conducted the orchestra. I believe you also arranged the musical numbers and also the parodies when Billy Crystal was singing. May I ask you to tell me about the process and working at the Academy Awards, Bill?
First of all, the Academy of Arts and Sciences picks a producer for the show.
Yes.
And then the producer gets to pick everyone else except the director. The network picks the director. Right. If it's on a television network, then that's who picks the director. But the sponsors of the show pick the producer. And then the producer picks everyone else. So then you become the head of the music department. Now, there's going to be original music to write sometimes. There's going to be the orchestra to conduct most of the time. And there's many arrangements to be written on the show. And you mentioned the parodies. But that special material is not written by the musical director, especially. The Billy Crystal material was written by Mark Shaman, another composer,
yes,
film composer, and clever and all of those good things. The orchestrations are so many that you can't do all of them. So there are going to be orchestrators working on the show, writing music also. And probably not the original. They're not original. But the categories, the play-ons, the play-offs, for that, and there's 5 nominated songs. In the old days, there used to be production numbers, big production numbers with dancers and singers. You know when the show date is going to play live on TV, and you know when the nominations are going to be, and nothing happens till there's nominations. Now, the nominations are not going to happen until, let's say, 6 weeks before the show. So now you're on a schedule. Let's say you know that you're going to do the show in February, and it's January. Well, if the nominations come out in January, whatever, then if they want original music at the opening or not, all the potential winners, if there's 5 nominees in every category, so you 5 times the categories, and you'll have duplicates. 5 times the categories mean there might be 20 different movies, 30 different movies in the running, in one category or another, sound effects, it might be. So all these little play-ons and playoffs have to be written. At least they used to be like that. So that's too much music for one person to do and no time to do it. So there's a lot of people working in the music department. You then contact the potential singers. You want some big star to be on. In my case, we did everybody, Madonna a couple of times. 2 people refused to show in my 19 times. It's the greatest publicity if you're in the business. Why wouldn't you want to sing on the Academy Award show if your song is nominated? Well, then you have to be in touch with these people. And those people have a list of things they want. Now, you're the music guy, so you only care about the music. Whether they want the pink M&Ms and stuff like that, we don't care about. But you have to care about the music. So that's going to keep you busy. And of course, the day of the show, there's not really a rehearsal. There's a rundown. There's all this tons of music have been written, but you're not going to play it the first time on the air. You actually have to read it. You have to rehearse it just once, and then you do the show. It's a live event. It's boring to a lot of people, but in the pit with the musicians, I used to have 60 musicians, 16 singers at its best. It's all different now, but it was challenging, and I loved it.
Great. Thank you very much for sharing this information with me. And I know you have to run. And Bill, I would like to thank you for taking so much time out of your schedule. I'm really glad we got to do this, and I was really happy you accepted to do this interview with me for my show. And I couldn't be more grateful. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I hope you did too.
I did very much so, Michael.
Thanks again. I had a great time, and stay safe, stay healthy, and have a good day.
Thank you, Michael. Good day.